Negative about
Thank you. Please note, council is in full attendance except for Ms. Solis, who's absent.
Is this on? Okay. There's a serious delay in it. Did you get that, April?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our October 3rd meeting. And our first item on our agenda is items from council. I have one item, but does anyone else, actually have several, but anyone else want to go first?
I just have one. You can go first, or
Go ahead, Mr. Bachnight.
Okay, I wanted to speak to the other council members about allowing volunteers to help out with any type of cleanup. Had 4-H contact me, and they'd wanted to have use their annual work week and service project as an opportunity to have the young men and women of 4-H go to Riverside Park and help with the cleanup down there. I think it's a worthwhile idea. I think it's something that we should be allowing volunteers to go down there. This organization has general liability insurance. The city has general liability insurance. One of the issues at hand that has been brought up is that sovereign immunity is waived by allowing volunteers to go down and participate in these activities that could be harmful. We know that there's inherent risks associated with clearing brush. But my view on it is that we waive sovereign immunity every time that our employee that is employed by the city of Victoria gets injured, and workers' comp is the backstop for that. In this case, when you have a volunteer organization that has general liability insurance and the city carries its own general liability insurance policy, you have the backstop for any type of injury should a lawsuit occur. I never anticipate a lawsuit, but there could be one. But I think it's a great idea to have some volunteers down there to help. Certainly don't put them under dangling branches and next to trees that aren't falling down, but I think it shows great pride and leadership that they want to actually come and help the city and get it back functioning like it needs to be. I think it's something we should allow them to do.
What would be the process to, I know council would have to, and Mr. Gush, you've advised against it, correct? And for us, if we wanted to,
My advice was solely to the extent that sovereign immunity is waived. I think the conversation went beyond that, but that's the extent of what I've discussed.
how, okay. I'm not opposed to the idea. I think we have, for example, if someone works in Riverside, the stadium, those are volunteers, weren't they? Or volunteers at the
Victoria
zoo,
Baseball?
which is city property, and I may be splitting
Volunteers
hairs.
at Boot Fest.
Yeah. How does that compare? And do we need to maybe just have further discussion and come back with all this? And I'm looking at Thomas. I mean, to put you
Sure.
on the spot.
Sure, I think it's probably, for Open Meetings Act purposes, we should probably put it on the agenda for further discussion. We do have an item on the agenda that covers Hurricane Harvey updates, and this probably arguably falls under that. But if we wanted to get into a specific discussion about allowing volunteers in the park, that's probably something we should have on the agenda for deliberation.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't,
Why can't it just be a consensus right now that the council members choose to move forward with it?
I would, let me, if I may, we probably should have some parameters, proof of insurance, like no minors, a consent or something. I don't know. Do the Boot Fest volunteers, we sign a consent, don't we?
I think so.
Or waiver?
I don't handle the volunteers.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying that there might need to get something together to do that. Whether we need to delay it any further.
I know we'll probably miss it for
What
their
do you-
October service project.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Yeah.
it's a great thing. It's a great thing that we got people that want to volunteer to come help and get the city back on its feet. And there's plenty of projects out there that aren't even hurricane related that we could always use volunteers to come out and, clean a park, whatever it is. And I think that procedure should already be in place that allows it. I mean, if we allow people at Boot Fest to be volunteers,
Yeah.
Seems like we already have the process in place.
I've been admonished from speaking about things that aren't on the agenda and, items from council when it's not listed. So I'll smile.
Oh, you don't want to.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
She's refraining from commenting based on the comment that it's not listed on the agenda for deliberation.
Oh, okay, so I can bring it up at the end,
I w- I
under
would-
that agenda item? Don't we have hurricane?
We have a Hurricane Harvey
Okay,
update.
well, I'll hold up
Yeah,
until
and if
then.
you-
That's
That'd be
fine.
great.
It's,
You wanna just
it's on
wait
the
till then?
agenda. If it's on the agenda, it's on the
Matter
agenda.
when, yeah.
It's questionable about whether allowing volunteers to go volunteer in the park is within the context of that. I think it probably, because this is talking about Hurricane Harvey recovery, I think, Ms. Scott, I think we're covered for the Open Meetings Act,
And our next meeting is the 17th of October?
correct?
Okay.
My point is, it's on the agenda now. We can,
Yeah. I guess, and y'all go ahead, and I
I mean,
don't mean
there's
to
no-
monopolize the discussion here. I mean,
I mean, I feel comfortable
I'm-
with it. I mean, it's based upon liability, but if someone wants to come and volunteer and have pride in our community, I applaud that. Certainly, there needs to be some, you talked about the liability and insurance portion from that standpoint, and if there's waivers or things that need to be
Yeah.
signed prior and things of this nature, I'm all on board. I applaud them.
I think, I agree. I think there's probably an element of oversight that we're sort of assuming would occur, and that would fall on city and city staff, in that we're not just saying, hey, anybody that wants to go to the park and start cleaning up, just have at it. So there would be some oversight, and I think, that's going to be some responsibility on staff that they would have to look at too. But I think the concept is good.
And Mayor, I do have the research that I had previously done on this issue with me tonight, but we had it set up for a prior evening's discussion. And so if anybody has any questions about why I said that or what the extent of the liability is, I'm happy to talk about that as well tonight.
why
I
don't
think
we,
it's a wonderful idea.
yeah.
Anytime you can encourage people to have a pride in their community and take possession of it in some small manner whatsoever, it's a positive thing. I think we should be able to work through the issues. Let's don't overanalyze it.
Okay, so basically, it sounds, Ricky, did you want to add?
I agree.
You agree?
I
Okay.
echo.
So there,
But-
okay.
I mean, and we're having this discussion in terms of 4-H, but, I mean, I've had this question too, because there are lots of volunteer groups that have come to town, retired men with chainsaws who know how to use them. And I asked the question, and sovereign immunity was, and I felt like that was a valid answer, but I'm just throwing that out there for the purposes of this discussion as to how far this goes.
Well, let me say this. So there's obviously a consensus on this council to do this, which is great. I think every one of us agrees. There's this, the environment is different with respect to the park and in the perception of danger, a little bit different than, other volunteer events. That probably caused hesitation on staff. If this group wants to provide consensus to the city manager and the attorney to figure out a way to make it happen and protect the city as well as any city employees, because the scope of the work and any supervision would need to take place, and that's under the direction of city manager, I suppose we could instruct them both to do that.
Yep.
Is that correct? I'm looking at both of you too.
I think Thomas needs to explain the position of waiving sovereign
Okay.
immunity and the danger down there. Sure. Because I think that's key to the conversation. And I did hear Mr. Balknight say, don't put them in dangerous situations where you've got hanging limbs or trees down, so.
Right. This question initially came up several weeks ago before another city council meeting, and we intended to have a discussion about it at that time. And so I did the research on premises liability. It's typically cities don't have don't have liability when there is simply a premises defect, when there is a problem or a danger to the citizens, unless the city knows about that dangerous situation. What's different about Riverside Park today than Boot Fest or other situations where we have premises exposure is that we know it's dangerous. there's no question. The day that we were asking this question, I drove down to Riverside Park. I asked the city manager if I could be admitted, because of course it is still closed. And it's worse than I think people realize. There are a lot of trees with limbs that are broken off and hanging in the tree. There are trees there where the trunk is broken in half, halfway up the tree, and you've got half of a tree suspended in midair. So it is a situation that we know is dangerous. And when the city knows that a situation is dangerous, we have a heightened responsibility, and our sovereign immunity is waived. So that's what made me hesitant with respect to this, and that's why I came back and said, our sovereign immunity has been waived with regards to this situation. It is different than Boot Fest or other volunteer situations. Although, as Mr. Balknight also brings up, there are limitations to that waiver of immunity. There are limitations on that liability. If tragedy did happen, there is a cap in the statute to how much we could be sued for, and that's a risk that can be insured around. And so if this council's direction is to go forward with this, we would need to make sure that the people who are volunteering out there have signed knowing waivers of any liability, that they are releasing the city to the greatest extent that we can. And then we would need to backstop that with an additional insurance requirement that would cover the limitation of liability set out in the statute. I think that if we do both of those two things, the city's ultimate interest is protected. The financial needs of guaranteeing the city's coffers are protected. And then it becomes a question about whether or not you as city council members believe it's appropriate to put people out in that situation and to ask them to do the work.
Do we have other places besides the park that could also use some work that are not quite as extreme? I bet we do.
I don't know of any off the top of my head.
Well, and
We've got the rest of the parks opened back up.
Okay.
And I would certainly think staff would not, we're not talking about climbing ladders with chainsaws. I think Mr. Balknight's probably talking about, let others do that, and these guys can drag and move and stack.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
trees
that's
that
what
are
I'm
down
thinking.
that are by the water treatment plant that we've seen that they do need to be cut up. They're falling over. They're just over. They're big trees. They just need to be cut up and stacked somewhere so someone can come and grab them close to the road, so you're not having heavy machinery.
Or after some of the big heavy work is done and it's down there and you've moved off and you've eliminated a lot of the danger from that standpoint, then in turn, it's a less dangerous area and you can continue to move from an edge inward.
I think there are a lot of opportunities. I mean, even like, if you wanted to volunteer to go out and look at, so I'd be able to keep up with some of the mowing, like the pumping station number 3 needs to be just cleaned up. And there's some good areas out there that we could use some volunteer stuff to get caught back up with
Well,
things. So,
I've been trying for a long time to get our friends, I don't know if we had a name for it, we're Friends of Riverside or Friends of the Parks. There's actually a 501c3 in process to do that, to do just projects as designated by the city manager and the Parks Director, even the Run Club, and it's the same thing. It's just not obviously not dangerous, but I would leave that to discretion of staff to work with the Parks Director and the city manager as to what the project could be. And then, of course, the city attorney would protect us with everything he does. So, having said all this, is that our decision tonight, is to instruct them to work with those volunteer organizations, we're mentioning 4-H, or anyone else, to see what's capable? But, again, I want to go back to the discretion of staff not to put them in danger. There may be a project someone wants to do, and if they say you really can't do that project, it's just too dangerous, maybe they can do part of it, and if that volunteer organization doesn't agree, then they can call one of us. You know, that's how the system works, right? Would that be a satisfactory resolution? So that the volunteer organizations would contact one of these two, you,
Sure,
and y'all talk about it.
absolutely.
Because you've got a consensus here that it's okay with us as long as we're protected and the
Sure.
folks are protected. You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Well, we've had other parallels of groups working in park, Friends of Victoria Baseball, the zoo
Yeah.
people, the Golf Association. They've all been down there during certain hazardous conditions to a greater or lesser degree.
Yeah.
Moving carts out of the way, moving animals out of the way.
Yep.
But
Trying to
don't
save the
forget,
ball
we
field.
have, we had contracts with those organizations too. I mean, so that's a little different than, I think, but anyway, but
There ought
I
to
got
be
the
a
message.
mechanism, I guess is what I'm getting at.
sure, not a problem.
The
We'll
people
work
that
on it.
wish to contribute can do so.
It seems like service is service. And, if the city doesn't have any project that they feel comfortable with, I'm pretty sure they've got a list of other projects that need to be accomplished that they could refer either to other organizations or just even to individuals. I'm seeing a big head nodding on that one.
Absolutely. We'll
Okay.
work on it.
Okay, we'll move on. I have my items. Anyone have anything? We have a little event this weekend and was wondering if we could get an update of what to expect. Mr. Garza or whoever from CVB? Joel, okay.
We're both here. We do have an event called Boot Fest that kicks off in 4 days, 3 days. And Joel, you want to step up? You're probably a little more short-lived than I am. Come on up. Okay.
He did a great job this morning.
Give us a
Thank you,
quick
Council,
recap.
very much. Yes, we are hard at work planning Boot Fest 2017 for this weekend, Friday and Saturday night. We've been getting reports from the National Weather Service, and it looks like it's going to be very favorable. It's going to be just great weather conditions. That's an understatement. It's going to be great weather conditions, I think. Many of the same activities as last year, some new interesting aspects to the festival. Again, we will go from starting at 6 p.m. on Friday until 11:30 p.m. on Friday, so a little bit later this year. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Weather permitting, we will have the Clean Core International Robbie and Tammy Burge fireworks spectacular provided by the generous contribution by those guys. And we will have our shuttle bus service running throughout the festival, Friday from 5:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m., and then Saturday from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. A great lineup of entertainers. We are trying something a little different this year with our Friday night being headlined by a Tejano act. So we will have two country acts, a No Chance Band, the Statesboro Review, a rock and roll act from Austin with some local ties, Vallejo, and then followed up by the official Quintanilla Productions tribute to Selena's music, which has been getting a lot of buzz around the community. We're pretty excited about that. Saturday, starting off at 9 a.m., we will have the Boot Fest Blue Sky 5K presented by DTAR back. Starting at 10, the Dalton Trucking Car, Truck, and Motorcycle Show. Our Washers tournament's coming back. We will have the Wells Fargo Bandstand kicking off with 5 local acts until 6 p.m. And then we will have, kind of going back to our formula in the past, opening with the Tejano Act on the main stage, Grupo Stampede of Fort Worth, followed up with Roger Krager and Casey Donahue. So 2 very popular Texas country artists. As always, Boot Fest is completely free. We do have our free Kids Corral back near the courthouse and the Prosperity Bank parking lot, excuse me. And a lot of great Western crafters, vendors, a lot of local food truck favorites, arts and crafts vendors, just really a great variety of activities for the whole family this weekend.
If we could just find a way to use the mosquitoes in this event, either mosquito races, but
Corral enough
anyway.
of them to carry stuff around the festival for us.
We were discussing it before the meeting. I was with the city manager. We'll do take every measure we can to prevent or spray and treat, et cetera. I just want people to know that, because with the rain, I was worried about it. So, looking forward to it.
Yes.
Okay,
See you again.
thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much.
And council also note, we are removing C2 as was mentioned before the meeting, no longer have a need for that ordinance. Okay, anything else? Just the one proclamation then. We do have a proclamation. We made those guys in the green jackets wait, so good to see y'all here. We'll read that now.
This is a proclamation signed by the mayor today, and it reads in part, Whereas the City of Victoria is proud to honor the 4-H Youth Development Program of the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service for 110 years of providing experience-based education to youngsters throughout the Lone Star State. And whereas this admirable program, which seeks to provide a learning experience for the whole child, including head, heart, hands, and health, helps young Texans acquire knowledge, develop skills, and form attitudes to enable them to become self-directed, productive, and contributing members of our society. And whereas the program undoubtedly could not have been achieved the same success it has today, were it not for the service of its more than 22,000 volunteers who have given generously of their time, talents, and energies and resources to the youth of Texas. Now therefore I, Paul Pelagic, Mayor of the City of Victoria, Texas, do hereby proclaim October 1st through 7th, 2017 as National 4-H Week in Victoria, Texas, and commend the 4-H Youth Development Program of the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and the many men and women who have made the program a success.
Get nice and friendly.
I have a couple little updates that I wanted to give y'all to kind of inform us. My name is Paige Melton, and I am the Victoria County 4-H Extension Agent. So I appreciate you having us here. We do it every year, and we look forward to coming to Commissioners Court and City Council. So we want to thank you for your support, whether y'all personally have supported our program or have little kids or grandkids in the program. We appreciate your support, and just know that. And we have a token of our appreciation for y'all, some homemade cookies and brownies and cakes and things like that for y'all to fight over. But I'd like to introduce our ambassadors that we have here today with us, and they have a little kind of update on what this week's all about and what we're going to be doing. So I have Mr. Logan Johnson, Mr. Morgan Meyer, Mr. Daniel Gonzalez, Mr. Tyler Johnson, and Miss Dana Malik.
How are y'all?
Well, very good.
More than 6 million young people across the country will be celebrating National 4-H Week. It is an annual celebration of 4-H the first full week of October. This is a week that our youth showcase the great things that 4-H offers young people and highlights the incredible 4-H youth in our community who work each day to make our community better and have a more positive impact.
National 4-H Week is also a week that we recognize our volunteers, sponsors, donators, and supporters. We know our program would not even function without the time, dedication, and passion of these hardworking individuals in our community.
National 4-H Week ends Saturday, October 7th with One Day 4-H. This year, Victoria County's 4-H's One Day 4-H project is helping the Texas Zoo with continued efforts of Hurricane Harvey cleanup. We will be there along with many other 4-Hers on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.
The Victoria County 4-H program has 16 different community and project clubs locally across the county for youth to be a part of. Some of the major projects our youth participate in Victoria County are shooting sports, livestock, food and nutrition, outdoor education, and leadership.
Last year, we had 491 active 4-H members and hundreds of volunteers. Our goal as ambassadors is to reach the 500 active 4-H member mark for the 2017-2018 4-H year and continue to spread the word of 4-H.
That's it, and that's all we have for you today. Again, we appreciate y'all's time and support for letting us come today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe y'all can go up front.
Okay, and we have one final item from council. Want to something from the city manager's report, F4. Let's move that up, because
I'm
we have
gonna-
people waiting.
Yes, I'm going to, April, do you want to step around, you and Paul, even though I don't have a certificate today, but at least OC can get a picture. But April recently was recognized by the let me get- Texas Municipal Clerk Certification Program as a graduate of that school. And her husband and son's here tonight to help recognize her for that achievement. And it's a great achievement. It's a 3-year program with over 200 hours of study and 4 different written exams to achieve that. So it's a great accomplishment for April, and she'll get her formal certification in January, but we've been notified, and I wanted to recognize her for that achievement. And it's great that the City of Victoria has her on board with that certification. And we appreciate Matt and Sawyer coming to celebrate with her tonight, so. Thank you.
Did you say that was not required?
Huh, it's not required.
Did you mention it?
No, and the mayor's asking me, is that required of her job? And it's not. It's just her wanting to go above and beyond and continue her education.
We
So,
appreciate it very much.
Absolutely, we do.
Congratulations. Thank you, April.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so that was items from council. That was the longest items from council we've had in a while. That's good. If there's nothing further, we'll move into citizens' communication. If anyone would like to come forward and speak about any issue at all, now would be the time. And just try to limit your remarks to, just your name would be fine, and limit your remarks to 5 minutes.
My name is Mark Lofgren. I live at 116 Wilshire Drive, Victoria, Texas. Excuse me. I have some questions about the September 19th meeting, specifically C3. It was an emergency reading, refinancing water utility revenue bonds. First of all, I'd like some clarification from the city attorney for all the people on TV. What constitutes an emergency reading? Who decides it? What can be an emergency reading? But I have some questions about, it was presented to refinance the bonds, and the maturity would be the same as the maturity of the present bonds. And it saves a lot of money. I'm all for saving money. Nobody asked, could it have been refinanced in a different way to save more money? Could the bonds have been of a shorter maturity and saved more money? I think that you could have. You wouldn't have seen the savings up front. You would have seen the savings at the end. I'd like that question answered. Nobody on the city council asked, is there a better way to refinance these bonds? And the city manager only presented you with one option. I think that's not good. You should be presented with all the options, what the best options is. They may have a recommendation, the city manager may have a recommendation, but you should have the ability to decide, maybe there's a better way to finance the bonds to save even more money. Somebody needs to answer this question. Could you have saved more money if the revenue bonds had a shorter maturity? I've attended other meetings, and the answer is yes. Maybe not in this instance, maybe because of the interest rates, but somebody should have asked that question.
Can you answer?
We can answer directly.
Please, city council, you're the leaders. Ask more questions. The city manager needs to give you more options. Thank you.
The city attorney may be able to answer some of that. Would you like to?
The mayor specifically asked me whether we're allowed under the Open Meetings Act to respond to those points. And the answer is yes, the city council can answer specific questions that are not on the agenda. And I'm looking here through the code. I'm going to speak from memory, Mark, in answering your question, so please forgive me if I'm speaking wrong. I don't remember the code section. You asked me specifically to explain the emergency ordinance exception. Our code requires that the caption or heading of each ordinance be read aloud at 3 meetings before it can be adopted. And it specifically allows for the second and third readings to be combined, and that is our normal practice. We typically read the caption once on first reading where we have the public hearing, and we combine the second and third reading together. The code then goes on to say that in an emergency situation, and emergency is not defined, there is no standard for what constitutes an emergency or what does not. In an emergency situation, that second and third reading can be dispensed with, and you can pass an ordinance on a single reading. There are two requirements to make that happen. One is the ordinance must contain a statement of the reason for the emergency. And secondly, it must pass by a supermajority vote of 5 members of council rather than a simple majority of 4 members. So that's the answer, that's the explanation for how that got passed on an emergency basis.
And I have if I may, since citizens' communication is still open, anyone else can come up in a second. I have a question of staff for a factual response. You stop me if I can. Mr. Reyna, with respect to the refinancing of those bonds, first question is this. I know we work with an outside agency. Were we presented with the optimal proposal?
Yes.
Was there a cheaper one?
The way you look at this is that if you stay within a maturity structure of the bonds, if that's the parameter, you're working with this number of bonds outstanding, and you're working with this time frame. If you're shoring up that maturity, you still have principal within this time frame you got to make whole for the bondholders. You save on the interest, but you have to come up with the principal. You understand that? Bondholders promise X maturity. So yeah, instead of it, let's, for example, we're doing on the text overpass, we issue a 20-year bond maturity, but we're speeding it up, but we still have to pay this principal. What we save is on the interest side of it. So you have to go back, figure out, okay, on the interest versus your principal extra you got to pay out. There's other ways to do it, but it might cost you some more money to pay out the principal at the front.
So with respect to our capital needs, our projects, and our financing costs, that was the optimal solution.
For our needs, for cash flow and everything, yes.
Okay, that was
But I'd be happy to bring back other options that shows if you're showing the maturity from I can't remember how many outstanding.
I understand.
To lower, I can show what the cash flow effect would be then.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Citizens' communication is still open?
Mayor, to further supplement my answer, it was section 2-26. I found it in the code. I think I summarized it correctly. I don't need to change that at all. But in case anyone's interested, it's section 2-26 of our city code.
Okay, sorry. Hello, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Keith Ketch. I own Precision Tune Auto Care on North Navarro. Thanks for having me. Make this short. A bar has opened up recently right behind my building. Every morning I come into work Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. I cannot even get into my shop. They are parking in front of my bay doors, parking in front of my waiting room doors, continually picking up beer cans, throw up, you name it. I've seen sex in vehicles in front of my building. I've called the sheriff's department, I've called the police, I've called TABC. I want to get these people out of my parking lot. I don't know what to do. I put the signs up, your car's going to be towed. There's not enough tow trucks in this town to tow all these cars. There must be 150 cars in my parking lot. If I have an emergency situation in my shop, how is any response going to get there? They can't even get into my building. I don't know. I don't want to be the guy that's going to start towing cars. I don't want to do that. If I'm led to do that, I will tow every car out of there. Then I'm worried about the backlash, the vandalism, the repercussions of towing vehicles. No one can give me a good answer on other than towing cars. Is there anything else I can do to stop these cars from being in my parking lot?
If I may, okay, Precision Tune on Navarro, you said, and that used to be the Sunbelt Rentals behind you? Is that what you're talking about?
Sunbelt Rentals was behind me, yes. Now it's a
Okay.
vacant building. Junior Burger owns that building.
That's vacant?
Yes.
That is not the bar you're speaking of?
No, the bar's where
On that-
Tractor Supply used to be.
Okay, okay. And that's all private property?
Well, obviously, people think my parking lot's a public parking lot, which is not.
Oh, I understand. Okay,
Yeah.
so the spillover parking is in where you're at?
Yes, I got signs on my door
You have
saying no
signs.
shooters bar parking. They're parking right below the signs.
Oh, okay.
They're parking below your car will be towed away. They're parking right, that's like, why didn't you put the signs up? They're not acknowledging them at all. And if I get a tow truck in there, they're not gonna be able to get a car out of there. It is jam packed.
Maybe if you want to talk to staff, not during this meeting, but it sounds and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, a private property issue. We may have limited to what we can do there. But why don't you, who should he contact later, like tomorrow? Is there any suggestion?
Call my office or, yeah, I think, do we have his contact, John? No, okay. So if you would give your telephone number to him, so you're not doing that publicly.
Yeah, don't get it
So-
out on the mic, but
We'll call you tomorrow then.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
you
Thank
bet.
you.
There was a similar issue I had near my shop. And what brought it to a head was that wristbands for some were underage were a different color than the others. And I kept finding these wristbands on the parking lot. So I asked the police department to see if there was underage drinking, which is what I suspected. And it thinned it down a lot, just as perhaps a possible solution.
Well, there was one issue with this that I've asked staff to look at. The occupancy for that facility by ordinance is, where the parking allows for a bar to have one parking spot for 100 square feet, 10 by 10, inside the facility. That requires them to have 97 spaces. They have 110. But yet, fire code allows an occupancy of 590 in there. There's no way that our ordinance matches up with that occupancy. I don't think there's gonna be almost 6 people per car going into that facility if they were packed. And I've asked staff to look at maybe a better way that works for bar owners and adjacent property owners where we marry up that occupancy load with the parking requirement.
Okay, very good. Just contact John, or John, y'all worked it.
Call him.
Okay, maybe you can provide some options. You bet. Citizens communication still open? Anyone else?
My name's Benjamin Lopez. I live at 2002 Cantu Flower Shop, at 2002 and a half Southwest Bend Jordan Street. We're still recovering from Hurricane Harvey, and that was a bad August, end of August. Our September, it's over with, but I really look forward to October, the Boot Fest. I'm here to thank you guys for still continuing the events, getting the library back up and running. I mean, we went through that storm, 12 hours of dark. We didn't have AM, FM radio. Our track phone ran out of minutes, so there was nowhere to go buy them. But I got blessed. Lupita's little kitchen right next door to La Luz de Mundo around the corner was serving on Monday morning. We served everyone coming in Bloomington. And I keep telling her, I said, you are a blessing from God. My mother was out of town. Me and my roommate, he knew how to barbecue. You know, we had good chicken, but everything in the refrigerator went bad. I didn't lose thousands of dollars of meat because I don't have thousands of dollars of meat to eat. But you know, the city of Victoria takes care of me, and I just wanted to thank you guys once again, because now October's coming, everyone's getting ready for Halloween, tomorrow National Night Out. You know, we all need to come out and still show the community pride. We for September, yeah, we all banded together, but now we want to forget each other again. We want our privacy fences back. No, remember, your neighbor still needs help. Drainage ditches still need to be pulled. Your pets need to go to vets and get heartworm tested. Because if not, 4 or 5 years down the road, you may lose a pet, and it's because of Harvey. I've worked with a lot of organizations, PETA, NAMI, and all they keep telling me is, Desi, just keep doing what you do. Go around, pick up trash, pick up debris. There's so many nails. There's so many pieces of sheet metal in the highway, in the street. And I live between Bloomington Highway and Port Lavaca Highway. I've contacted TxDOT. They've given me 2 trash cans. I fill them up in 3 days. Texas Feed Store, it got demolished, the roof. But I'm up there trying to help those workers. I'm helping Elite Command. Anyone that's on my block, Wayside, Kern, getting kids to the bus stop, getting buses back into our community. And everyone's worried, well, we don't have cable. But you know what? Go to Halftime Bar. Watch all the sports channels you want. Go to Paga. Watch all the golf, you know. There's other people who have resources. Dory opened up for the hurricane because, hey, in their country home, they didn't have nothing. But their facility had everything. You know, business is business. But living in a community, that's a beautiful thing. Living in a neighborhood where you have barrios and gangs and Queen City against Silver City and all these other things, I don't pay attention to that no more. I go to my Christ Kitchen. I go to VCAM. I go to St. Vincent de Paul. I do my volunteer work. Being a volunteer is a good life. I don't get paid well. I live off of every one of your tax dollars. I live off of minimal means, but every day I get what I need and I get what I can. I start my day at St. Mary's. I pray for the police department. Me and Montequilla will see the firefighters train. I'm proud of my nephew, Dylan Lopez. He was the #1 cadet in Houston when he left here, the Victoria Fire Department. We're big city kids in a small city, but it's a beautiful city to live in. I love Victoria, and I look forward to October, and I invite everyone to come out to Boot Fest. I invite everyone to enjoy themselves and look at your neighbor and tell them, you know what? We're a strong community. If you look at the good and not focus on the bad, what we did wrong during the hurricane, oh, Facebook couldn't tell me. I didn't have Facebook. I went to my neighbors and knocked on the door, and I said, what do you need today? By the grace of God, my pastor across the street, he brought me ice. I want to thank Rady Ice for making my cold water cold again. I want to thank Odom Waterworks for getting the water back up and running so you could take a shower and not worry about being filthy. Being a clean city means we take care of each other. Don't forget about your neighbor. Don't forget about the people in your community. And tomorrow night, when you see people at the parks having a good time thanking the first responders, remember the people who stayed home, the home responders who came out of their house and helped the community. Those people deserve a pat on the back. I just wanted to thank the city council again for being here every Tuesday. Parks and Recreations for being where they are every Tuesday. I watch my Channel 15 when I can't come out or my feet are too blistered or too tired, but luckily I have Dr. Andrews Podiatry Clinic to take care of my feet. They're going to get me my diabetic shoes. I got my bus pass. I still circle around the city like if it was my own, but I know I'm just a resident here. I come from LA where I graduated in 1994, and you know what? A nobody walks in LA. I'm a nobody here. But I walk through pastures. I get my feet muddy. My mom complains, oh my God, look, my house ain't clean no more. I could at least tell her now a hurricane hit it. She still gets mad. But, my issues are my issues. And once again, if there's anything I can do to help Mrs. Scott, if you need more ice, more water, we still have some available. There's so many people that I thank every day for getting me through my day. It's a long day. I've been volunteering over 96 hours a week. I do it because my spirit tells me to. And I know by the grace of God, this city's going to recover and we're going to be strong again. I've looked on my books. Victoria is one of the wealthiest cities in America. I didn't understand why, but it's because of our ports. So everybody have a blessed National Night Out. And I just wanted to come and thank you guys again.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Citizens communication still open, if anyone else would like to come forward. Again, just your name for the record and keep your comments for at least 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'll be quick.
Thank
My
you.
name's Nathan Kemp. I'm actually not a citizen. I'm from Texas, but we're down here trying to do some work in the city of Victoria. We've done the proper stuff as far as getting a contractor license and things like that. But what I'm noticing from all the citizens that I talk to is that they're worried about getting caught up. They're wanting local people because we wanted to use local people to do as much work as we could to put money back into the city of Victoria. So with that being said, anything that we can do to help, we're on file. I don't want to put a name out or a number because I'm not here to solicit anyone. I'm just wanting to let you know that we're here to help and try to do things the right way. The only concern that I have, we have to get inspections for completions. Once we're about 90% complete on these things, we're supposed to have an inspector come out and take a look before we finish up. My concern is once we start going and once other companies really start going, are there enough inspectors to get out and see these things? Because in particular, when we're doing roofs, 90% complete is not complete. And if we have to wait a day or two to get someone to come out and inspect, well, then we're leaving stuff open for more damage if a rainstorm pops up like it did today. So I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do to maybe address that or see how we can do that, because you'd have to have a ton of inspectors in order to get everything.
Have there been any changes or efforts to ensure that that's timely? I don't know that we can make a guarantee, but
Yeah, no, not asking for guarantees. I just want people to,
They've been working weekends, so they're just not working Monday through Friday, but
okay, so staff is working, when you say weekend, Saturday, just Saturday?
Saturdays.
Okay.
Okay.
Might just be we'll go along and see how well we do. And it's a matter of your company being very timely with contacting them so they can schedule it. I know some of them are here from that department sitting in the back, so we'll
we're
do our
carrying
best effort.
tarps. We're trying to be as prepared as possible to do whatever we can if you guys can't make it out there to protect people's homes, because they've already been devastated enough. So we want to make sure we do the right thing and
Appreciate
getting
that.
everyone taken care of.
Just keep the lines of communication very open with that group.
Sure, I will. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Jenny Stafford, live at 120 South, well, I work at 120 South Main. Sometimes it feels like I live there too. But I wanted to come to you tonight and talk to you about the Hurricane Harvey recovery that we're involved in. First of all, I hope you all have one of the red T-shirts, Victoria Strong T-shirts. I love to wear those. I've been traveling a lot, and I wear it every opportunity I get. I'm sorry I didn't get to wear it tonight, but it's still in the laundry. But it just says to people around how well we did. And, I look around and the city's already getting cleaned up. The branches are gone. Power's back on. Gas is running. You'd never know going into HEB that we've been through such a horrific thing. But I have to tell you that I don't think we're strong until everybody is strong. And there is still a percentage of our community that's still in the middle of a storm. For some of them, they're in the eye. Perhaps they've got some temporary FEMA housing, but it's going to end soon. That temporary FEMA housing is going to end on October the 25th. And I have to tell you, at this point in time, Midcoast Family Services has 131 households who've come to us for housing because their housing was lost because of FEMA. Now, these are not people who own their housing, but these are people who rent. We normally serve that population, but this time last year, we served 7. We had 7 on the list. Today, we've got 131. My concern is we don't have any place to put them. We are in a funding gap at the moment that will come to an end soon. October 15th, we'll have some state funds. In the meantime, United Way is helping us. We've gotten $10,000 from them. We put $5,000 of our own dollars in to help with people's first month's rent and their deposit, application fees, whatever it is they need to get housed again. But the problem is there's no housing. As of about 4:30 this afternoon, and we've been calling once a week, I believe there are 3 apartment complexes that are going to have a room here and there, an apartment here and there by the end of the month. So we got 131 households and maybe 4 or 5 apartments to put them in. We're going to have a real crisis in about a month. So I'm here tonight to appeal to you to use every resource you have. We keep hearing rumors around. We hear rumors that there's FEMA trailers coming, and then we hear a rumor that there's going to be a tent city, and then we hear rumors that there's nothing that's going to happen until the apartments are repaired. But as a nonprofit, we've sat around and tried to figure out what we can do. We've talked about a congregate shelter, and we've talked about asking churches to come on board, but I can tell you it's bigger than we are. Midcoast can't answer this problem. I don't think any one organization can answer this problem. I think it's going to take a combination of city and county and nonprofits and the faith community and other civic groups. But I'm begging you to think about opportunities that may be out there on the horizon. If it's some sort of FEMA housing, we need it, and I implore you to take advantage of that. Surviving Hurricane Harvey was not a fun thing to do. It's kind of a badge of honor. I think that's why I like to wear my T-shirt, because I used to hear my parents talk about going through Hurricane Carla, so now I can talk about Hurricane Harvey. For me, and I'm going to get real personal here, but for me, it was an inconvenience. Our roof leaked, our ceilings we've got a big hole in the back guest room, but we've got insurance, and we've got the means to pay our deductible. And it's really inconvenient to have my dining room turned upside down and have our guest room in the dining room right now, but we're going to get through it. But there are for some people that it's not an inconvenience. It's going to be a life-changing event, and we don't want homeless people as a result of Hurricane Harvey if there's something that we can do instead. So thank you for listening to me. You'll probably hear me again. If you want to know anything more, I've got books and books and books and applications and situations of people who need help, and I know we want to do our best to help them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dolly Stokes, 307 Buena Vista. I'm here with Victoria County United Way. I always hate to follow Jenny. She's so eloquent. She's got her fact book, and I'm just standing here. But I will tell you, one of the things that I appreciate about what you have done is not all of the work that's already been accomplished, but the timeless hours each of you and many of the other people in this room spent the last 5 weeks. And you think, please don't remind me of that, because we've all had to do it. Even today, though, I was out at Dow Chemical Company picking up 45 boxes of donations that were sent from all over the United States, some clothing, some cookware, personal items, all the kinds of things that we've been receiving over the last 5 weeks, and then taking them to the social service agencies, including Midcoast, that still have these people in need. Similar to Jenny, we live in the College Park area, and other than lots of big limbs down, we're in pretty good shape. But there are so many people who are still hurting. Today, one of the companies that supports United Way, including the employees that support it, called frantic over some of their employees who are in the same situation. One employee has 11 of his coworkers sleeping in his house. He's ready for them to leave, which is why they called me. And we don't have those places. We are also working with the Long-Term Care Recovery Program. FEMA approached United Way several weeks ago. We are part of the VOAD. I know you know all about that, the volunteer organizations assisting in disasters, many faith-based organizations, including Community Action Agency, Midcoast, Habitat for Humanity. We've been working nonstop on the victim or the affected individual part. And one of the biggest gaps is housing. Whether FEMA is going to find trailers or RVs or some other type of temporary housing when the people leave, not only the few people who are in the FEMA-provided voucher hotels, but all of these other places where they're staying on sofas with friends, we know that problem is going to be bigger than it is right now. If the long-term recovery team can help with that, we are meeting every week, and I'm meeting with some FEMA people tomorrow. We welcome even greater participation with how we can tackle it. Thank you for your time and for all your work.
Thank you. Citizens' communication still open? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close citizens' communication. I want to make one quick remark with respect to the Harvey and some of the comments. One thing I learned during the hurricane was, for me personally, was to be very careful with what I said. Any remark I said would float through social media, be misconstrued. You know, I had some companies in town knocking on doors saying we were recommended by the mayor because of someone that knew me or something. So I had to be very careful. So having said that, with respect to some of the housing issues, I'm very engaged. I'm receiving phone calls, putting people together, and there are things happening. And I hope to do more of my own personal update, maybe within a week or so on that. But until I have, there's a lot of ABCs of agencies. There's a lot of overlapping effort. And I know you guys are doing a great job. I'm aware of that. So I'm waiting to some of the dust to settle a little more. I just wanted that to be known. Okay. We can move into ordinances. Remember, we scratched C2, so we just have C1.
C1 is an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 City of Victoria budget to provide $6 million in funding for the relief and recovery efforts resulting from Hurricane Harvey, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for savings, and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item C1.
Public hearing?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing on C1. If anyone would like to speak just to this specific item, now would be the time. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing on C1. We do have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
This is an estimate of what our initial out-of-pocket is, and then FEMA will reimburse actual cost at a rate of what?
Well, I have a quick presentation.
Oh,
I'm
thank you,
answering
Mr.
always
Anya.
ahead of the curve, thinking how they're going to ask these questions. So if you bear with me, I got about maybe 2-3 minutes. Translating might be 10 minutes of a quick high-level overview of how this thing, we're looking at it and what the estimates look like today. Keep in mind, it's just a start, okay? This is a starting point, okay? I don't have a magic ball for this one, but slowly it'll be developing it. Okay, what we're asking here is that we want to amend the general fund, water, wastewater, environmental fund for a total of $6 million, of course, for needed funding to start repairs and infrastructure that was damaged by the Hurricane Harvey. Currently, right now, we're in the process with our insurance carrier, TML and FEMA, to start setting up claims reimbursement. And keep in mind, this is one of the reasons, as you well know, we have reserves to address these type of issues. That's why it's important. Now, what are we doing with the $6 million? How I came up with that number? Okay, I'll answer that. On the general fund side, I'm taking about $2 million. That's about 33% of the $6 million. And I've gone through the whole projection, looking at the numbers, where it fits real good without harping any operation, nothing like that. So from the general fund, we might be dipping into our minimum reserve. Remember that 25%? We might be dipping around 50% of it. The other 50 comes from the excess. On the water fund, we're not dipping in our minimum, we're dipping into the excess above the 3 months operation. So we're good there. On the environmental service, what we're doing there is that besides our operating reserve, we have what we call working capital for replacement vehicles. But it's okay. There's a timing thing, so we can use this money now and replenish it later. So we're okay there. So right there, we're looking at $6 million, 33% from general fund, water 25%, of course, the high portion is environmental 42%. Now, keep in mind that throughout this whole process, and a lot of this is you probably know, but I'm just for the public purposes, we're going to take the $6 million along with any other proceeds, FEMA, insurance, et cetera, and related expenses associated with the hurricane, and we're going to put it in one fund for accounting purposes. So everything is centralized in one area, so all the numbers are accounted for in one place. That makes sense? And given that, on a quarterly basis, I will be submitting to council and city manager a report on the status where these projects are. Each one will have its own identification number, name, et cetera, the cost, where we at on reimbursements, et cetera, et cetera. Excuse me. Now, like I mentioned before, we're working with our TML insurance carrier to submit the claims. We have one, for example, the $84,000 you're looking at tonight, reimbursement. For the repairs for the water pump. We submitted that claim, we got about $70,000 back on that. So we're in the process of that. We're also in the process of gathering the information for FEMA. We have submitted our public work assistant worksheet. It's been approved. City manager signed off already on the grant with FEMA, so that's taken care of. We have our first meeting with FEMA on October 11th. Andrew and I will be meeting with the folks. Andrew's really running a shotgun here, but we're gonna meet with them. So we're in the process right now. Everything's looking okay so far. We finally getting a hand on this whole process, so it looks good right now. Now, there might be some mitigation projects out there. One example is the road in the park. That might be handled separate by itself, because that you might have other type of testing, compliance, and requirement. We will put that outside itself and look at it and see what kind of money is addressed. Are we dealing with? Because you might be dealing with a higher volume dollars there. So put that aside. We are going to address them, but on priority and the funding level of it, okay? So we're not going to forget about them.
Talking about the erosion.
The erosion
from
on the road, thank you very
riverbank
much, on
that
the
has
bank of the river.
The integrity of the
I'm sorry,
streets in jeopardy.
You can't read my mind.
So, no, that's okay.
I'm going to go through a high level on the reimbursement side. On emergency works, there's two categories. You got debris and emergency protection services. On the debris side, basically, FEMA will give you 90% reimbursement. However, since we have a debris plan in place, we get another kick of 2% for only 90 days towards the end of November. After that, it goes back to the 90%. but that's a good plus. Kudos to everybody on that, 'cause it's a great plan to have in place before the hurricane. It was a great job. On emergency protection services, it's 100% recoverable. We're not gonna have a problem meeting the deadline to recover 100% of that cost. Repairs on the road, 75% is FEMA. Remainder is ours on approved projects. Water control facilities, we don't have any of those. Those are like dams, dikes and stuff like that. But we do have public buildings and equipment, that's 75%. Utilities, we have some. Our water treatment and a sewer treatment plant and water plant, that's 75%. Okay? Parks? Yes, ma'am. I'm going a little fast here, I know.
Water control facilities, what does that mean? Is that?
Water control facility, dams.
Dams.
Dikes, big structure that controls water flows.
And that's if
Prevent
if we
flooding.
had a project already in place?
We don't have one.
We don't,
No.
but what's the timing on it? What's the?
As far as I know, we don't have a project or something, we don't have a dam that's been affected on our side.
Okay, so
Those are
it's-
one of the
it's a
categories
repair.
FEMA provides.
It's a repair.
Exactly, but on that category, we don't have anything to submit,
Okay.
as far as I know right now today.
We haven't gone there, but I've been thinking about the zoo and.
Well, that's a different story.
And that's why I'm asking what that category means.
Now, the zoo would fall in the zoo fall in the category of public building equipment area,
Okay.
okay?
I think Ms. Scott's talking about the berm around the zoo.
Oh, the berm?
The
Oh, that's-
repair around the berm.
Right.
We'll look at that. That mitigation project, we'll look at that itself.
That's why I was asking what
Sorry.
that meant.
Correct.
Thank you.
I was thinking the city of Victoria, not zoo. On the parks, there's a category for that itself, and other items that don't fit in the other category, that's 75%. Those are the certain projects that the city, which is called the Public Assistance Program, will get some type of reimbursement for. Now, with that said, FEMA has two thresholds. They got a small project and a large project. On the small project, it goes up to about $123,000 some change. What that means, if they identify a project that's 123, 100 less, what they do, and if it's approved, they write you a check based on the estimate. That's why we have to have good estimates. Other than that, you're on your own, or they have an appeal process, but it has to be certain guidelines established. If it's larger, $123,000 some change, it's on a reimbursement portion of, as you progress through the project, you get reimbursed. Now, once all the projects, I don't care, small or large, there will become a final say-so where you got to file the final project and everything, and they review it, might get audited or checked, whatever. Then it's gone away. I still have to keep records for so many years, but I'm not going to get into that. But there's two categories. I'm looking, hopefully everything falls in a small category because you get that money up front. The large category, it's on a reimbursement as you pay out. Does that make sense? Completion, percent of completion. Okay? I think that we might have maybe a handful of large or maybe 4 or 5 of them. It's not bad. Now, this table, I'm going to qualify on record. This is just a what if. It's not like you said this. It's a what if scenario. If everything lines up, if we have $6 million today, and these are the cost estimate, and I'll go through in a minute. This will look at this will happen on a reimbursement at the final day, at the end of this whole process. We have the BREE program. Why 3.5? Well, we're figuring about 350 cubic yards. In addition to cubic yards, you're looking at individuals going out there, tree trimming and everything else. This also includes the monitors that go behind Ashford, and that's in that number. Tonight, you'd be looking at an amendment to the contract, increasing the fee. Hopefully, within that, again, I said this is a start, so we can still work with that number, hopefully. If that number transpires, you're looking at FEMA 92%, the city would pick up the remaining balance of 280. On the emergency protective service, I said it was 100%. If everything goes right, we'll get reimbursed on 350. That 350 all includes the traffic with Austin interlocal agreement we have with them. That's in that number. Building equipment and other, that's a good swag. I can't put a dollar exact, but it's a good swag. I think it might be less than that, aside of the road in the park. And bottom line, if all this transpires, the city could be possible out $817,000. But the kicker is this: This numbers, the city does not include any insurance reimbursements, okay? So it can be less. I just left it at the high level, and anything I get that on top of that to reduce it, it's just gravy on the. So I will make sure you understand the insurance proceeds are not in here. I still don't know that number yet. If that falls through, then based on the ratio that we take out, general fund's 33%, water 25, environmental 42%, the allocation cost will fall in that type of scenario. And so it ended up costing us the overall city $817,000 on this scenario, this example. So my purpose of this table is that it's going to take time to get to the end, but I think we're going to be in good shape. Does that make sense financially? And then we have reserves to account for that and manage through those issues. And I think we're good. Do I lose anybody?
Do you have any feel for how long the reimbursement will end up taking? Will it take all of this next fiscal year to get it all reimbursed?
Well, the small project takes up 6 months once it has been approved. So could it be in 18? Yes. Large projects, 18 months. So you're looking possibly the next fiscal year. Mitigations depends on the situation. If you got to get environmental tech, that can take you a little longer. It just depends on the project. And I have to take a wild guess, and Andrew, you can correct me. A lot of our costs are in the small sections. The biggest cost, besides debris, will fall into maybe that road. We do have, there's a couple more. We got some irrigation systems above the 123. That might be considered a large project too, but the majority of them, it's on the small side of it. So we might get that money within this year by the end of this September 2018. We might have a handful of projects still outstanding, which are those large ones, once they're approved.
Okay.
Mr. Reyna?
Yes, sir.
From my memory during Claudette, some of the smaller things were coming in as almost 2 years later from FEMA. Is that correct or incorrect?
The rule of thumb is that they give you 6 months. However, they're going to work with you. If it takes longer, it depends on the situation. They'll work with you. So what I'm giving you right now is the rule of thumb, which if you open any FEMA book, that's what it's going to say. Okay. But if you look further in the book, there's some ways to expand that if there's issue with the project itself. Okay. What's important here is that next week, once we get the project worksheet done, is that once they approve, FEMA's they want to get on that real quick. Once this project worksheet, the timing is important, but they want to get that in the pipeline as soon as possible. And they can work with us if this project end up being 7 months or 8 months. But what's critical here is trying to get these projects in the pipeline so you got these categories in place. But back to your point, there might be a project that might take a little longer than that. For example, in a small project, there's process to take care of that. I didn't want to get into the details on that, but there's process.
Can you give me an example of what emergency protective measures? Is that the Emergency Management Center?
That's exactly right. The staff that are usually not here working on a daily basis, for example, you call in somebody, his or her day off, well, that cost is taken care of, or any overtime associated to that individual. There might be some equipment that you used in that process. You're reimbursed on that rate. There might be supplies you bought. For example, the traffic control that y'all enter within City of Austin, I believe you have that tonight. That's in emergency protection services. Those are the items I'm talking about. That was taken care of within a certain short period of time.
Just for comparison, do you have any idea what it was for Claudette, the total?
Claudette?
Did you set up a similar fund like this?
We did. I don't think it's close to this. We didn't have that much debris.
If it's 3 million out of 6, or
actually, I was looking higher, but it's like, oh, okay, it's not
for Claudette. You mean?
No, debris. I was thinking a higher number than that. And once I start, we have
yeah,
300,000. That's $7 a cubic yard. It's going to be increased and all that, but you still got some monitoring costs. You still got some other extra costs from the park and everything else. So I feel good with the 3.5 for now. But I think the building equipment might be a little high. I think it's going to be a little less, but we'll see.
I think it's important to remind everybody that as we get this reimbursement, this money will go back to the funds that it came from.
Let me caveat that a little bit, Mr. City Manager. It'll go back to the Harvey Fund, but once all the, like, for example, you might have this mitigation project y'all want to do. You might want to look at, okay, what's left here, and you might want to leverage that money here to start the project off. Now, once everything's finished complete, everything goes back based on those ratios I was telling you. Yes.
So we can expect quarterly reports on this fund, which is good.
That'd be part of my plan, because y'all get
the-
quarter reports from city overall. I mean, it's going to add a
Right,
separate
right.
section in itself.
I think the questions were in all our minds about the timeliness of these payments. I know that I have heard horror stories of a decade reimbursement from some school district people, and I should, be careful saying that. I do not think that will happen here. The state and federal agencies, speed is the key, from everything I've heard.
Well,
So-
my experience with FEMA, I'm talking back since the '98 flood, the hurricane from Louisiana and everything, I've seen some progress. Do we get the money ahead of time? Yes, the only thing is just the large project that takes a little longer normally. But once you get these projects in the pipeline, I think you're in a better situation on the smaller projects. And as far as we have learned, and FEMA, when we're talking to them and everything on the phone, it's like, it seems to me they made a lot of improvements.
Yeah.
A lot. And a little smarter decision. They have hired, they got some from the private sector doing some of the compliance work and all of that's working with Andrew. So all the questions that might end up being after the project done is being taken care of at the front end. So we don't have that little blocking thing after, oh, we should have told us at the beginning. But, so we handle it. We got some pretty good folks on the pipeline. It's going to help us.
I would add, to get just a little bit political, I would applaud, staff and the councils over the last 10 years that have put us in a position to be able to do just this, to cover our own expenses up front. If you, watch the news recently, the state had to write a check for $50 million to the city of Houston. They're not even, they are in a difficult financial situation. They can't make their bills. Of course, and I know, Jeff, you're kind of keeping an eye on things in Austin as well as I do, but it's frustrating to me that a community that does not act fiscally responsible, the state of Texas becomes an extension of their general fund. That's frustrating to me, and I have expressed that to some people. Now, we can expect something probably from the state, I don't know what, to help, 817.5 is what your rough projection is, to make us whole, but after what was given to Houston, we might be able to get made whole at some point in the future, and that would be a good thing, I suppose, to return some of those tax dollars back to our citizens who pay all that to the state, so.
I'll leave people like you in position to do that.
Well, right, and but I just want to make that point, and it's also some points I've made, and I'm not bragging, but we were much more prepared, we had the contracts in place, and that reimbursement rate we were able to move quickly, and kudos to staff for that. But it would be nice, and I have shared this with others, that if a community was proactive and efficient like that, that their reimbursement rate was higher. Now, that's a federal issue, but in other words, incentivize communities to have a contract in place and be responsible, because it helps a lot. So those discussions have gone on. And Jeff, you may have had some similar
And
discussions.
that is why we're getting an additional 2%, because we have
Yeah.
a plan in place, a
And
contract in place.
And that's because of the short time frame. We were able to do it within that 90 days, I guess.
Well, actually, it's because we kind of had a vision there, because you had a plan in place
We're ahead of
prior to the event. That's what gives you that extra
Yeah,
too.
that's the two.
You took the effort, we took the effort to place a program in place before any hurricanes. You got to remember, this plan was in place I think 2 years ago, before anything happened.
How many, Daryl? 4? Okay.
4?
Yeah.
Okay, 4. So it's like, I know when that plan came forward, looking at numbers and dollars, I was like, at least you didn't have to tap it, but when you needed it, it was there.
Yeah.
And not only that, when this plan is looked over by the Texas Department, DEM, and FEMA gives you a little rubber stamp, it's okay. And y'all went through the whole process, procurement standard and everything else. So, and I did congratulate Daryl on this, because when he gave me the whole plan, and I start reading on it and everything and looking at FEMA guidelines, that's pretty good. I was impressed.
Now you're bragging.
No, I'm not bragging. I'm bragging on him.
I know. I'm just kidding.
And so anyway, other than that, besides me standing up there, I think Andrew's been doing a yeoman job on this process. So kudos to him too. I mean, so it's been we had a hurricane. We had some issues, but like we know, we're just looking forward. Hopefully things can clear up a little bit and we walk one step at a day.
And to put it in perspective, so our building equipment and other, there's 2.15 million. I finally got a chance to go visit our neighbors down south, and I talked to the mayor of Port Aransas. Their building equipment loss is $22 million. Even their fire trucks, they didn't drive them off the island. They got inundated with water. So, that's a community of 4,000. Now, we know there's 30,000 people there on any given weekend, but the population of that city is 4,000, so we're fortunate.
Well,
Yes, sir.
I just want to remind y'all, the other big part before debris is probably that road, and that's going to be something we're going to have to tackle separately and talk about it and fund it.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a statement that I wanted to applaud council. We just came through a rough budget session, trying to find funds to fund everything. We didn't touch our reserve fund. Now that's when it shows. That's why you carry it. You hope the devil this never happens. You know that sooner or later it will. It happened 9 years ago, it happened now. And y'all did good. If we had tucked into that and then have this, you wouldn't be like where we were at. We're very fortunate comparatively. And that's from that foresight.
I apologize for this question because I'm sure it's in my budget somewhere and I could find it. But what is the balance in the reserve fund before and, well, either before or after? We're
Before,
gonna be
after what
moving-
day?
Ending fund balance?
Yeah,
12 million something, what?
I mean, that's, so
12, yeah, around 12
we
million.
don't want another Harvey next week, but we're in,
Hopefully not.
but we still have reserve.
Well, okay, let me be more specific. You're
General
referring,
fund balance.
General
you're
fund
referring
balance.
general fund, it's about
All these
12. So I'm looking right now, based on my projection I did a week ago, 2.5 weeks ago, it's gonna be a little higher. That's why I said it was more of a 50-50, so we're not dipping it. So, but the project numbers the budget number you're referring to, that's in the general fund itself. Then like Mr. Bugner was saying, we still got the water fund, so that's another close to $9-10 million there. Then you got your environmental service that I got up close to a 5. That's without the closure fund balance of 2.5, so that's a total. So, we're in good shape financially if you put everything together. And that's why you probably wonder, well, why are you throwing this all one? Well, I just want to spread the love a little bit. Of course, as you can see, the environmental service took more of the hit because it's got more debris. But my objective is that once everything's settled, not every fund is hit hard. Because if you look, you put the numbers back, when you take $6 million back and everything plays out the way it is without insurance, and I want to get hit with 800, it's not bad.
Yeah, this shouldn't affect any credit rating.
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact,
Ratio, mm-mm.
we knew the call was coming sooner or later. Of course, they call us. So what happened? How's it going to affect you? What operation was that? I said, seriously, guy, we got to do all this stuff. We got to. So anyway, we did answer them. Basically, I can understand their point of view if our operation from the water side has been affected, because it does have some bond relationship with that, because you're not generating rate, but we were good there, and so we're okay. So yeah, it doesn't affect us on that. Not like some other cities that they're really.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how they're going to address it.
I ran into Bob in Rockport yesterday. He was coming, it's Bob Peterson,
Yeah, he won't sell you the.
coming out of a meeting with their local officials. It was
Yeah.
interesting, and we talked about that.
Yeah, they have. They got some issues. So
Yeah.
how are they going to address those things in the future?
Thanks for being a good steward.
No, thank y'all for relying on us. Anyway, council, that's all I have. Any other questions? Thank you
Okay,
very
No
much.
further comment. We do have a motion and a second. We did the public hearing. And, okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. The consent agenda.
There are 7 items on the consent agenda tonight that'll be approved by a single vote. They are first, the approval of the minutes of the special meeting on September 12, 2017, and the regular meeting of September 19, 2017. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a promotion services agreement with the Victoria Main Street Program in the amount of $60,000 and declaring an effective date. Third, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a real estate lease and professional services agreement with the South Texas Zoological Society Incorporated for management of the Texas Zoo in the amount of $125,000 and declaring an effective date. The fourth is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an interlocal agreement with the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission for the operation of a transit system, authorizing the expenditure of city funds for the transit system in the amount of $209,000 and declaring an effective date. The fifth is a resolution approving the city's annual scheduled purchases of computers, computer software, computer peripheral equipment, maintenance contracts, security equipment, supplies, and phones through various cooperative purchasing contracts in the amount of $550,912, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete such purchases and declaring an effective date. The sixth is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Motorola Solutions for maintenance and scheduled upgrades to the 800 megahertz radio system in the amount of $386,669.04 for the current year and declaring an effective date. The seventh is a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew an existing contract with SAP Public Services Incorporated to support the installation of necessary notes and patches on the city's financial and human resources software in the yearly amount of $29,400 and declaring an effective date.
I move to adopt.
And I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, ayes have it on all those items. Resolutions, E1.
E1 is a resolution nominating and casting votes for appointment of a member to the Victoria County Appraisal District Board of Directors and declaring an effective date. Mayor, of course, we need to fill a blank in on that resolution. We need a name of someone to nominate to appoint.
Any volunteers? Jan?
I've thought about it. And I haven't really said this out loud to anyone, but because of my practice as a real estate attorney, and because I do interact with the appraisal district, while I appreciate you asking, I'm just feeling uncomfortable about it.
No. Well, I just thought all your knowledge would be good, but I see what you're saying. And of course, Josie's not here, so Mrs. Wilson. And that was, yeah. I served, I don't know how many years on that board. It's not bad.
How long is this?
I'll
Oh,
do
it's 33 years.
How often do they meet? Wait, first.
Monthly, if I remember correctly.
They don't meet they don't meet every month, but they do meet probably, I think it's about 6 months a year. Hold on, let me see. This one might be different. No, I don't think they meet every month, though. I think it's like when it's needed. They meet to do their budget and that kind of thing in their yearly meeting, but when the director needs.
It's a good learning experience.
Yeah.
You want to do it?
Board of Directors, right? It's
Right, right.
I'm not listening to appeals.
No, that's the,
No, matter of fact, you're totally,
AR.
they don't mix.
That's the ARB, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was making sure.
There's actually like two different ARBs, two different groups that actually get paid a little bit. I think it's probably one of the most difficult groups to be on. That's, yeah. Okay, well, very good. Okay, so Mr. Bachnight has volunteered graciously, reluctantly. We don't have a motion, do we?
No.
So everybody's good with that? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we fill in the blank with Councilman Bachnight.
Second.
Okay. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank
Been
you.
one of those motions that died for a lack of a second.
You volunteered. Thank you very much, Mr. Bachnight. We will have excellent representation on that board. Thank you.
I thought you were going to thank me for that motion.
Okay, E2.
E2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an interjurisdictional mutual aid agreement with the city of Austin, setting forth the terms and conditions of aid provided in an emergency, most recently in response to the city of Austin's assistance to the city of Victoria with the restoration of traffic control in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item E2.
Second.
We have a motion second. Are there any questions?
No, I just want to tell City of Austin, thank you, and I was mightily impressed by them. I was on Navarro when they rolled into town, and they stopped every intersection's traffic and just rolled in as a convoy, and they went straight to work, and it was phenomenal.
Agreed. And we'll be doing some more formal thinking of those guys up there very soon.
If you don't mind, just a few seconds of a history of that for the
Yeah.
public. I don't know that we've taken a whole lot of time, and I see Donald there. You know, we, part of the process of working through an incident command or a NIM system is when you realize you need resources, it's called a STAR report. And we send that STAR report up to the state to see if the state could help, help us with resources that we know we're lacking. And when we realized that all 88 intersections in this community were out, we realized our crew of 3, 4, how many's on that crew?
Sure, off the top of my head, I think there's 6, including
Six, okay.
including the manager.
So we realized, and 2, not only did we not have the manpower, we did not have the inventory to fix our, intersections and place temporary stop signs. That we just did not have the inventory. So when the state was unable to assist us in that request, I reached out to the former city manager of the city of Austin and asked him who in Austin could I reach out to, because I was looking for a large city that could help us, and he quickly gave me the name. So I sent them an email on Monday night. By Tuesday morning, the hurricane occurred on Saturday, landfall on Saturday. So this happened on Monday and Tuesday. So by Tuesday, the city of Austin had responded within a couple hours so that they would send a crew in here. And they showed up on Thursday. So, properly did all the, requests to the state, and so we'll get FEMA reimbursement on it. But those guys came in force with all the inventory they needed, supplies they needed to help us. So I'm not sure where we'd be today if they had not come in to help us. And they worked from Thursday through Tuesday. And when they left, our intersections were all, except for maybe 4, I think 4 up and running. But our team worked side by side with those guys and did an incredible job with the city of Austin, but we could not have achieved what we achieved in that shorter period of time. So we owe a debt of gratitude to those folks and their willingness to do it. And they asked for volunteers. They had more volunteers than they needed to come to Victoria, and they were proud to be here and help. So it was great.
They actually sent, some went home and some came back so that they could get more volunteers in. When they hit the ground, they were highly organized and highly motivated, had their own operations center set up at our Public Works facility. It was amazing to see. We would, to answer your question, we probably would still have some intersections that are down right now if they wouldn't be for them.
And those intersections being down were very dangerous for our
Absolutely.
motoring public. It was horrendous. So very thankful for
Yeah,
that.
nighttime was a
I was
challenge.
impressed
Oh, my
by how
goodness.
much they got done.
I'm sorry?
I was impressed by how much they got done in
Oh.
a short amount of time. Because when you started counting up the numbers of intersections, we just take for granted that those lights are gonna work and they're gonna be there.
Yeah, it was long.
Just drive around someday and count them.
Yeah, it really, as I was driving downtown today, you see the red light, you make a right turn on red without really thinking about it. You see that there's a green light ahead of you and you judge it. You just take those intersections for granted. It's just amazing. So thank you for reaching out.
I'd do something.
Yeah, it was very appreciated, and we had other municipalities contact different people and myself and staff, and the interesting thing, I read parts of your MOUs, I scanned through it, and it struck me that this kind of thing might be a more novel idea going forward in the future, is these dependencies between municipalities. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory towards the state of Texas, but in this situation, cities helping cities really worked out well.
Well, and the state was overloaded. This was an
Yeah.
incredible storm. so state was overloaded.
I stopped to talk to one crew, and I don't think they believed me because I was so dirty from working somewhere with a cap on. And I introduced myself. I don't think they believed I was a mayor. It was funny, but it was good to see them all here. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Item E3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to apply for and accept a grant from the Office of the Texas Governor's Criminal Justice Division for funding to obtain rifle-resistant body armor for use by the Victoria Police Department and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item E3.
Second.
Okay, motion seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, ayes have it. E4. Thank you, Chief.
E4 is a resolution ratifying expenditures in the amount of $84,412.24 for the repair and retrofit of the variable frequency drive and the replacement of the motor on Pump 3 at the raw water pump station that were damaged during Hurricane Harvey, and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item E4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions?
Yes. So this will, after this repair's done, we will have all 3 of the pumps out there operational.
No, sir, with this repair, we'll have 2
We'll have
operational.
2.
Yeah, there's one that was damaged just prior to the storm that has also been shipped off, and it should get back about the same time this one does.
Okay.
And it's the motors, not the entire motor and pump assembly, it's just the motor.
Okay. And this VFD that we're gonna install, soft start VFD,
Yes, sir. It's already actually
It already
installed.
was.
It's that part has been done.
okay.
Yes,
And
sir.
I asked that question for y'all in the future when we're talking about generators. When you have soft start variable frequency drives, it lowers the amount of KW you're gonna need on an electric generator, so make sure
Only-
when we're looking at these
The
VFDs. that-
inrush.
Pumps what you need at the time. It's not just full on, right? It's a variable.
It's the way it starts in the inrush current.
Okay, all right. I think I follow you.
But the VFD just changes the frequency of the sine wave for the AC,
Okay.
and you can variable flow your pump, as long as you don't flow off your pump curve.
Okay, very
It's
good.
intended to supply water, let's say in the middle of the night, you don't need as much water. It can be slowed down to what is required, or in high peak times, it can speed up. Other than that, you have to have a single-stage pump that will only run at one speed,
On, yeah.
on or off, and it doesn't work well with our system. That's where the turbidity issues came in.
Well, very good. Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Ricky, did you have? No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same? Okay, thank you. Where are we at? 5.
E5 is a resolution ratifying the city manager's agreement to increase fees for debris cleanup after Hurricane Harvey, authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to the agreement with Ashbrook Incorporated formalizing said fee increase and declaring an effective date.
Council?
I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to approve item E6.
5.
5, sorry.
I suppose because it's ratifying, I'll second. Otherwise, I
Okay.
might not have made the motion.
We have a motion
somewhere.
and
A
a
second.
second. So we're going from $7 and some odd cents per, to $10 and some odd cents. I can tell you why I think we have to do this. I
I
mean,
can
it's,
also explain my decision and why I moved
Why don't
forward with it
you go
without
right ahead.
ratifying it. So I'm sure, I'm going to back up and say, I'm sure you're reading specifically about Houston, where they're doubling what they will pay a sub to come remove debris. So when we met with Ashbrook last week, they were fixing to start losing their subs. They cannot force a sub to stay in this town. Our contract does not require them to force so many people to stay here. So they were going to guarantee us 4 trucks working. So if we increase the prices, they felt like they could keep the numbers, I think, anywhere from 16. We've had 21 at one time. We've had 16 to 18 on the road. So we could have either increased the rates, gotten finished in the next 60 days, or kept the rates the same, gone down to 4 trucks, and gotten finished in the next 6 months.
6 months or so.
So that was my decision point on, I just don't feel like the community would tolerate going 6 months on picking up debris. And so it's going to probably cost us, I don't know, $40,000 to $50,000 more.
But we still
Out of
qualify
pocket.
within that extra 2% for that window of time then.
Yes,
It's going to reimburse that. But in the grand scheme of things, us voting for this rate is still going to be reimbursed at 92% by FEMA and then the additional for insurance. So
Yes, sir.
at the end of the day, it's a really small portion that's going to be out of the general fund
And
or
it's-
environmental fund.
And it's not retroactive. I think I saw a date of
No, it
September
is not.
27th.
It started last week.
It
when-
started when Charmel approved, when the city manager approved the rate.
Just, 60 days, 60 months was the decision point.
6
So-
months. 60 days,
months,
6
or
months,
6
yeah.
months.
Not 60 months. Oof.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking, moving forward, I don't know if this contract comes up for renewal or whether we leave it in place. And, I mean, we've basically found a situation where we don't have, I guess, a time limit on how long it takes them to, and it's hard to tell whether they would have agreed to that anyway, but.
I can't I don't know, I can't imagine a company that does this kind of business agreeing in a contract that I'm going to provide you X number of trucks and we're going to get it done in this ahead of time, because there's no way of knowing. And I talked to the general counsel for Ashbret, and, you know, he said, I can't make those trucks stay in Victoria. Of course, Ashbret might have some civil remedies later, but they'll have to make that decision at the time, so.
The hurricane Harvey that passed through Victoria, you know, we're estimating 350,000 cubic yards of brush. Before that, you know, when you're talking about a Category 4, winds over 100 miles an hour, it could have been much higher. So to try and tell them you need to bring in 50 trucks for maybe we only have 100,000 yards, it's just, that's not something that, like the city manager said, they would agree to. However, this is a unique thing that happened here in that we had 2 Category 4 storms hit the United States in a 2-week period. It's never happened before. Hope it never happens again. But it really, you only have so many pieces of equipment in the United States. And so they're all coming to Texas, everything's great and fine. Now you've got another Category 4 storm that hits Florida. That large number now gets cut in half or worse. And that really, with what FEMA did in releasing the competitive bid situation, cities like Houston are willing to go out there and say, we want the trucks here for our people. We'll pay $50 a yard. That's not the number. The number was, you know, close to 30, but they're willing to pay that when we had a contract for something. It goes back to us being prepared.
What municipality got 50 million?
I'm sorry?
What municipality got 50 million?
City of Houston.
Okay.
The county's in a little better shape up
just-
there, but, right.
Just put that out there.
But I will say, with a bit of levity, the county judge in Harris County is the one that raised the price, which in turn,
Sure.
you know, it is what it is.
Is there any way in the future, I would like to look at that Ashbret contract, just to make sure that we don't get people in here and then they say, we're gonna cut your equipment in half unless you pay us more? So we're not blackmailed into having to do this.
I think this is definitely a learning point that we will be looking at when we negotiate the contract in the future. Whether the other party will agree to it, obviously, you know, a contract has to agree.
Contracts, 2 sides, I know, but.
Right.
And I don't think that they would have the intent of doing that. It's just, I don't want.
Well, the problem with any force of nature, an act of God, if you will, you can't predict it. Monday, I wouldn't have thought it was going to hit us. Who did? By Thursday, it was on us, and it came on us suddenly. Normally, we have 48 to 72 hours to react. This thing was squirreling around. We didn't have 24 hours. We had a council meeting that night, you recall? Thursday night, we had a council meeting.
But that hasn't any bearing on what I want to go forward and
Daryl
look
and I
at.
have already talked
Okay.
about when we need to relook at that contract. We've not looped Thomas into that, but we've been talking about
Yeah,
ideas.
I just want to make
So
sure that we don't
it's
get bent
just
over the
an-
barrel
Another
later.
lesson learned.
Okay.
So,
And Councilman,
absolutely.
this is for 180 days. Ashbrit, when we talked, we put 180 days in there to cover the length of this storm. They did not request, and we did talk about this, going forward with their contract. They believe this is a one-time thing as well. That's why they only requested it for 180 days. After that, the price goes back to what the contract says.
Okay.
And,
good.
you know, just for sake of discussion, apparently there was a releasing of the requirement of competitive bidding, and so we got stuck with the tail end of that because they couldn't keep people here, you know, because people are going where there's more money. You know, so it's not something we initiated, but arguably it's not something that Ashbrit had that much control over either, being generous.
It's an odd situation. I had the same reaction. It's a contract. How can, anyway. But it's
But
been
no,
explained.
Yeah, and I understand where Mr. Balknight's going, so.
And
No,
Ashbrit
absolutely.
doesn't own their equipment. They subcontract every bit of this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do.
Okay. Good discussion. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, ayes have it. E6.
Excuse me. E6, there's a resolution granting a variance to Article 5 of Chapter 9.5 in Section 5-52 to allow temporary structures to be located within the floodplain at Riverside Park for the purpose of facilitating the Texas Zoological Society's recovery from Hurricane Harvey and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item E6.
Okay, we have a motion second. Does anyone need any clarification on this one? You
Did
want?
we get the foundation part worked out?
Stepping forward to answer that question.
No, we did not receive the foundation specs, which is why we moved forward with the variance.
Okay. So as long as we approve the variance, then we're not going to risk the other structures within FEMA or flood insurance for the rest of the citizens?
That's correct. I mean,
FEMA published some guidance for temporary structures in state of emergencies, which we've actually attached to the resolution. So we're following that guidance, and we don't feel that it will be a ding on our program at all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So to put this in English, 2 trailers with wheels that can be moved, one in front of the zoo, one around maybe the back of the zoo. And then there's some shipping containers that will be moved up to where the old Riverside Convention Center was. So, but if something should occur, they can move those 2 trailers rather quickly. So the variance is to allow all that. Is that right? Did I summarize? I just wanted to.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that translation.
Well, and it was, yeah. Okay, any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign? Okay. And that concludes all that stuff. Now there's city manager reports.
yes, I'm looking at Andrew. I'm gonna move Andrew up, if you don't mind doing the open court docket. I see the judge is back there and Tiffany's back there, so.
Appreciate being bumped up, so thank you. Mayors and members of the city council, pleased to introduce, it's a new process that the court has implemented. It's being referred to as the open court docket. They did the first kind of trial run in September, and just some quick numbers on that. There were approximately 500 notices that were sent out to citizens at the first part of September, and they actually had 37 defendants appear. I don't know what a realistic expectation was, but I know it probably far exceeded the initial run at it. And really, this just gives the public an opportunity to come see the judge, talk about any outstanding citation or warrant they have, kind of rediscuss the pieces behind their particular situation. This is contrary to a stated docket that's developed months ahead of time, and
So it kind of gives a little more flexibility and availability to the public. Outside of the first one, like I said, it was in September 25th. There's two more, October 23rd and November 27th, so you'll kind of see a pattern. It's kind of the fourth Monday of every month. To be seen on that docket, you just have to check in by 1 p.m. It is here in the council chambers. Outside of that, I believe the date in December kind of coincides with the Christmas holidays, so we're trying to figure out what day that can land on. So essentially, this will be at least one every month, potentially, maybe additional as we move into 2018, but at least one now. Yes, Tiffany, our court administrator here, and Vanessa, our municipal court judge, is also here. So if I can't answer it, I'm sure they can. Be happy to address any questions you may have.
I think it sounds like a great idea and certainly can fill a need for members of the public. I appreciate it.
You said 37 out of 500 roughly?
Yes.
They came in, took advantage of it? And you do that just with a mail out?
Yes.
Yes, I sent postcards to people that had active warrants just to pass the word out that we were having this opportunity for them to come in. We did clear 37 warrants and resolved several cases that day, and it was really nice to see the reaction from everybody. We have had people even calling us afterwards, when's your next open docket? So word's getting out already that it was a success. So.
I wonder, I was hesitant to bring it up, but if it's, if you had an email address for all these people, you would drop them an email. Sometimes they're a bit more mobile. They may not be at an address, if I'm guessing, that you send a card to. But social media, sending a note, hey, were you aware you can come in and take care of this? I just wonder if that's too time consuming or not. Just something for you all to consider.
Our system doesn't currently have that ability, but we are looking into a text message program through our software. We're doing a test program in October, so that's something we're looking into. Cost-wise, it'll be more cost-effective, and it'll help pass that out.
So when you say your system, you mean your management, docket management software?
Yes, it does capture the emails, but it doesn't have the ability to send email blasts through that system.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Andrew. So I'll go back to the top. The Hurricane Harvey update, I've asked Daryl to briefly talk about the brush, just because that's what's out there left. We're working hard on the traffic control signals, those are up and they're tweaking those, as Donald would say, but the library's back to normal hours. As I mentioned earlier, Development Services is working weekends, do inspections, but brush seems to be the one that we're getting a lot of questions about and where we are in that process.
Believe it or not, the most questions we've had in the last 2 weeks has been about recycling.
Oh, good.
And it started
yesterday.
Wouldn't have guessed that.
So, yes, it's been a big topic lately. But we did, solid waste is back, almost to full service. Everything, the solid waste, the yard waste, and the recycling is all back up and running now. The brush and bulky will not commence until after the cleanup is done. To date, we've picked up 244,718 cubic yards inside the city limits of Victoria. That's both residential and some small commercial in different places. I put a map on everybody's place before the meeting. The first page is the north, and then the central, and then the south part of Victoria. If you look, every green dot on that map represents a pile that was picked up. It's hard to find a street that's not covered completely in green. So it's going along very well. We will actually, one other thing, anywhere you see a little red truck, that's just a snapshot of when I printed this, but there was a truck at that location picking up service. This is real live time that I have up on my computer from the time I get to work to the time I leave. I can tell where every truck's at. There are more trucks servicing than what's on here, but when they're en route from one location to another, to the dump facility or back, their GPS is not reading or sending. So The red trucks you see are actually picking up, in the process of picking up brush. We expect to finish brush this week. Next week, we will start picking up C and D, so the fencing, the furniture, sheet rock, those types of things that were damaged in your home due to the hurricane. The key here is due to the hurricane. If you've got a roofer that's coming to your house to re-roof your house, he cannot take all your roofing material and put it out at the road. FEMA will not reimburse us for that, and we're very careful with what we're picking up. Those monitors that follow those trucks around will stop them from picking up a pile if it's not going to be reimbursed to the city. That's their job. And so one thing we're starting to see is a lot of green brush coming out. It's been over a month since we've had the hurricane. We still should not be getting green brush. We're going to pick up the brown. The green will stay until the city restarts its services. And that's a very important part. Yes, ma'am.
I apologize for interrupting. There's one particular pile that I remember seeing that's got some tree limbs and a fence next to it. Could you address how that's going to be handled? Because I suspect it's going to be left.
Yes, ma'am. It probably got left on the first pass. Now, over the last week, you'll see some different trucks. You're going to see a few less of the really large trucks and a lot more of smaller trucks. And you're going to see some like little skid steers running around town. They're picking up stuff that was under a tree or under a wire that the big trucks couldn't get to. So you'll see a lot more of that. Those piles that are mixed, if they can pull the debris off easily, then the next time they'll come back on the second pass, they'll get the brush. If they can't, normally what's happening is if you're at home, you'll get a knock on your door. The monitors try and communicate as much as possible about this needs to be fixed. As we move into that second phase, we will be working harder to make sure we get everything up before they leave town. We expect that it's going to be, there's a lot less debris out there than it was brush. This is going to move a lot quicker. We are going to start in the hardest hit flood areas because if you drive through those areas, every house, it's like the brush was all over town. And so we want to get that up before it becomes a health and safety issue. But same as the brush, we will be starting from multiple points, working through the city. Should not take as long as the first round of brush because the yardage of debris is a lot less than what the yardage of brush was. And then we'll make a second round pass for brush pickup, and then we'll be done after that. So I can answer any questions.
Okay,
Thanks, Daryl.
Thank
good
you.
job.
Okay, so the next report I have is, at the last meeting, the conversation was about waiving the late penalty and the $25 fee. Though, and I mentioned probably need to bring ordinance back to do that. Those fees have been waived. For anybody that received a bill during the month of September, the 10% late penalty and the $25 cutoff has been waived. So,
For the water bill.
for the water bill,
Yep.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So there's not a need to bring back an ordinance on that.
Okay.
On that, can we, I know it's on the bill for that fee, can we put it on the sign-up sheet for new utilities?
Probably explaining what the penalties are and the late fees and all that when they,
Yeah, when you refer to sign-up sheet, what are you, oh, a new account? New account? I'm sure we can put something on there that details that.
when you get your bill, it says if you don't pay within so many days,
Exactly.
it's gonna, you have a penalty on there. But yes,
Right.
no, that's,
Sure, we can do that.
any questions on the waiving of, okay, so when they get their bills in October, we're going back to the late penalty and the cutoff fees, so those will not be waived. Okay. So the last item I have, since we've done 4 and 5, is the recognition again of, for 35 years, Gilbert, of achievement for excellence in finance reporting. So, I always remind everybody, that's a statement that we're going above and beyond the normal accounting practices. And the purpose is to allow the public the ability to look at our finances and be able to understand our finances in a reasonable manner. So it's kind of a transparency issue. But for the city to get that 35 years in a row, it's a voluntary program. We do not have to submit to that, but we choose to, just like we do for the CAFR. So it's a great, I think it's, what was I going to say? It's a great achievement for the finance department, and we kind of, I think, take it for granted in a sense because we've been doing it so long, but it shouldn't be taken for granted. And I know Gilbert's here and Andrew's here, but they do a great job with the financial reporting, so we appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Good job, thank you. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. You want a picture?
Cheryl, pat him on the back.
Yeah, Pat, reach over, give him a pat on the back. But sincerely, thank you for your good work you do. It is noticed and appreciated. Okay, is there any further business? Okay, that concludes our agenda, and we are adjourned. Thank you.